Howdy. Today we're going to cover Fusion Manufacturing Milling number 4. It's this setup right here. A couple of key topics we're going to talk about is engraving. Um, how do we deal with this undercut by creating a sketch, and 3D adaptive clearing. So stick around. It's going to be superb. Here's the part we're working with today. The couple of key features is it has this stair step, which lends us well to 3D adaptive, and we have this undercut. So we're going to learn how to basically create a sketch that we can use in manufacturing to control the cutter. Before we can do the manufacturing, we first need to address we have this undercut. And eventually in the manufacturing process, we're going to do a finish contour. And the best option would be to finish contour around the bottom of the part here, all the way around, including this area here, that there is no line to follow. So we're going to go ahead and put that line in. So when we get to the manufacturing process, we can machine this perfectly. So we're going to start a sketch on the bottom of this part. And then on the keyboard, P for project, we're going to click on this arc, and we're going to click on the little line here, and then there's one on the other side here, and we're going to go ahead and click OK. And then we can flip this back over. We can hit Finish Sketch, and we can zoom out. And that gives us this purple line here that we can use on our finished contour when we get to manufacturing. Now that we've set the part up where we want it, we can go ahead and create our file where we have our work holding and the part loaded. We're going to use our setup sheets, which I have in the classroom, or you can download, that is going to walk you through the work holding, how big the stock is, what tools we're going to need, and the work offset. So go ahead and get that done and then come back to this video where I'm going to show you the new elements. Using the setup sheet, which I provided, this tells us all the important information. So for example, the work coordinate system is number 8. That you have to basically take, subtract 6, which leaves you 2, which means it's the extended version at P2 right here. And then you have the stock size here, which we already adjusted in the model. We're using the mini mill number 1 work holding for this project. It also tells us all the tools we're going to need, 1, 2, 7, and 10. And then the file name or the file number right here. And the name is this. Obviously, you're going to use your last name. And then the rest of the setup tells you where the origin is. The rest of the setup you should know how to do from previous videos. So we're going to go ahead and move on that. First thing we're going to do, first 2 steps, are we're going to probe it and we're going to face it. So go ahead and do that and then come on back to the video. Okay, welcome back. We have probing done and facing done. So now we are going to want to remove most of the material using adaptive. In the previous videos, I showed you how to use 2D adaptive, which would have some limited success on this part. Would we get the basic shape? Yes, but this stair step in here would require a 2D adaptive for each step. So the better way is to actually use 3D adaptive. This will pick out all of the things. We're going to go ahead and select our tool, which should be our 3/8 end mill in aluminum. And then we're going to come across and it's going to pick up that we're cutting this. It's looking at any previous machining, and then essentially all we have to do is check the optimum load, which this is a little bit aggressive for a high school classroom, probably fine in production, but I am going to reduce it down a little bit so that we're a little bit easier on the machine, especially if you make a mistake. And then we're going to go ahead and click OK. And what this is going to do is it's going to look at the part, and you're going to see that it is going to cut everything in one pass. So you can see that it's gone in here and removed all this stair step and roughed out the entire part. The only thing I didn't do that I should have done is I normally like to push the part. Let's go in and turn off the model really quickly, or the stock really quickly. Right here. We needed that turned on, by the way, for probing, if you wonder why it's on. But if you look here, here is the bottom of the part. Well, this isn't a good side because this is the side without the thing. But if we grab here, the bottom of the part lines up with the bottom of this, and I don't want to do that. So I'm actually going to come back in here, and I am going to push the bottom. We're going to offset it the opposite of what they did, negative 0.02. And if you look at the blue thing, you can see that blue line makes it a little bit below it. That makes sure when we flip it, we have a better finished part. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. It's going to do some more thinking, and it should take off to that level. So now that we've got most of the material removed from the part, now our last steps is to go in and finish it. As you can see here, there's a little bit of material left. So we're going to have a series of contours. So I'm going to go ahead and select contour. I'm using the same cutter, and I'm actually going to pick that purple line that I drew. And then I'm going to pick this one and that one and that one. And we are going to go ahead and click OK. And if you watch it now, it should produce the finish depth as well as cuts each one of these exactly to size. So if we had not used 3D Adaptive, we would have had multiple 2D adaptives, 4 to be precise. The outside, this step, and this step. And we eliminated that down to only one, and then obviously one contour to finish it. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to drill and countersink. Countersinking, you always want to do that second if you can, because the countersink is actually processes fairly hard on the cutter. And if we already have the hole, it will be a little less hard on the cutter. So let's go ahead and drill. And we're going to select our drill bit from the tool. If you look at the print, which I provide, it's a number 7 drill bit, which happens to be tool number 8. We're going to go ahead and select this, select same hole diameter here, and that will pick both of them. And then we want to obviously break through the bottom, so tip through. I always then add a little bit more and go ahead and click. Oh, we have one thing to check. The top of the height top, notice the blue starts at the bottom of the countersink. It's assuming we did the countersink first, which we did not. We're drilling first. So what we need to do is switch this from top of hole to top of stock, or top of model, I'm sorry, top of model. So now it's extended it up to the top of the model so it knows where to drill. Oh, we can't have a negative breakthrough. That's right. This is positive. Oh, come on. And go ahead and click OK. And we should now have a hole that drills all the way through. Now we're going to come back and do the countersink, same tool, or same process drilling. The tool is different. We're going to use the countersink drill, which if we go back to the library, here is our countersink. It's in aluminum. We hit select. And then we are just going to select the geometry and click same geometry. And now we have both. And we don't need to make any adjustments. We just click OK. Before we can do the engraving, we need to make the engraving bit. Here's our engraving bit. We got to show you how to make this in Fusion and put it in your tool library. Okay, to add it to the tool library, we need to now click on tool library. And there is already in here a cutter. So I actually have two because I've demoed this once before. It didn't work, so I'm going to go ahead and delete that one. And I'm going to create a new one. So to create a new one, I'm going to click on the plus, and then we have to pick the style of cutter it is. This is an engraver, so if we come over here, it says engraver chamfer, and we click on that. And then we have to give the it a title. So this is a 1/4 inch, so 1/4 F1 60-degree engraver. Okay, F1 means it's one flute. The vendor is PT Solutions. And the product number is written right on the box, which is where I'm getting this information at 62-1145. And then if I had a link to the website where I bought it from, I could put that in here. I don't have it. Coming across here, we have to collect this information from the box or from the cutter. So it is a chamfer mill. It is inches. There is a single flute, and it is in carbide. Now, the diameter right on the box shank diameter, which is the same for both of these, is 0.25. Oops, 0.25 and 0.25. Now, tip diameter is 0 because this is a true point cutter. The overall length, I've taken it out of the box and I measured it with my ruler, and it came out to 2.5 inches. Now, the length below the holder. Now, we need the holder right here. We need to know this length here. And if I measure it, it is 1.3. So I'm going to go ahead and put in 1.3. The shoulder length is, if there was a shoulder, there is not. If it went from a smaller diameter to a bigger diameter, that would be the shoulder length. In our case, we're just going to make the shoulder length similar to what the maximum amount it can cut is, which is 0.25. And then it's going to err on me because the flute length has to be smaller or equal to the shoulder length. So I'm also going to make this one 0.25. And you can see that's the gold part right here. And then I could do 30 degrees for the taper angle, but we know based on the box, the inclusion angle is 60 degrees. So I'm just going to come down here and put in 60. That gives us pretty much what it can cut. Now, the gauge length, we don't need to worry about for now. We did not have a shaft for this cutter. It's held right in the tool holder. There's no extra shaft, so we're going to skip that. The holder. Now, you may need to get this tool library from me. It is all the holders. It should be on Schoology where you access all the other files. But this holder is a Royal, says right on it, a Royal, and this size is ER16. So if we come down here, we got a Royal ER16. We're going to click on that and hit select. And then if we zoom out, you should see that that somewhat matches this. They look the same. Cutting data is our next big spot. We need to tell it how fast we are going to run this in both RPMs and in feed rate. So over here, we are going to first under default write aluminum, because that's the material, 60, 61. And then for the speed, we're basically normally just going to fill in the surface speed. Well, for aluminum, 800 to 2000 is the ideal surface speed. If we put in even the minimum of 800, it already maxes out our machine. So what we're going to do is our slowest machine we cut aluminum in is 6,500 RPMs. That's the Mini Mill 2. So we're going to go ahead and just default to set this to the maximum of our lowest machine. And then we're going to come down here and we're going to adjust the feed per tooth. Because it's a pointy cutter, the weakness at the very end is high. So we're actually going to run it at a relatively slow speed. So we're going to do, I guess it's not really relatively slow, but it will be relatively slow to what most people think. We're going to do 2,000s per revolution. So that gives us a feed rate of around 13 inches. Obviously, in production, that would be way too slow. For our purposes in a high school setting, this is ideal. All of these should be the same. I normally do the ramping speed the same, but the plunge rate, I normally do half or thereabouts of whatever the feed rate is. So this is 13. I'm just going to do 7, close enough to half. The next stop is post-processor. This number has to match where we put it in the machine. Given that we run it in both the Mini Mill and the Mini Mill 2, and basically our engravers, whether it's a diamond drag or this one, are always in slot number 7. So we're just going to default this to slot number 7. Note, I may change this in the future if you're in my class and listen to whatever number I advertise in class, but sometimes I move the tools around to better fill the needs. But right now, we're doing it in slot number 7. And then we can go ahead and click OK. And now we have that cutter loaded right here, and we can use that cutter to go do the engraving. Now, the last new thing we're going to talk about is how to do engraving. So engraving operates slightly different than tracing, which we did in 2 previous assignments, both the keychain and FMM3. Engraving, notice the spacing between the wheel letters. It's going to use the V of the cutter to go up and down so that the edge of the cutter matches the edge of the lettering. So it'll go deeper here, it'll be shallow along here, and then get deeper as it tries to move through those spaces. It's much more elegant. It's takes longer than tracing, and it's also harder on the cutter. If you're not careful with the lettering, you can very easily break the cutters because they're extremely weak. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into 2D engrave. And then we are going to select the tool, which should be in your tool library, students. And it is a number 7, but not the diamond drag. It's a 60-degree engraver. So it has a 60-degree angle, and it's a single point cutter. You can see if you zoom in here, it's going to do that. And then you simply select the lettering. And we're going to go around, make sure you select both sides of the G. That one down there is what I meant by both sides. And these letters here, and go ahead and click OK. And what you will notice is if we zoom in, see how the cutter is shallower through this V and deeper through this V, and that will produce a perfect engraving. Okay, our last step is we need to put a chamfer on this part. So we're going to go ahead and go to 2D chamfer, and we're going to select here, 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 and here. We are going to go back to the tool. We want to make sure we select the chamfer tool, tool number 3, and make sure we select it in aluminum. And then what we need to understand is we cannot chamfer all the way up to this wall. If we try to get all the way to the wall, get all of this line, the chamfer cutter would have to go into this wall. So Fusion's smart enough that it will prevent you from hitting the wall. But we can get close by making adjustments within the parameters here. So if we go to passes, our offset is always 20 thousandths is how much we're doing a chamfer. But the tip offset, if we use the tip and we're way down here at the very bottom, we can't get very close to the wall because the diameter of the cutter's going to hit before the tip finishes. But if we move it up, so we change that tip offset so we're further away from the center line, we can get that cutter closer to the wall. So if I click OK right now, you'll see that it's going to produce a line. It doesn't even like these ones. Oh, there it does. And you can see how far it stops away from finishing this. Remember, we're never going to get to the end. But what we can do is right-click Edit, and we can adjust this tip offset. Now, you have to do a little bit of math in your head. It's a 1/4 inch cutter, so the diameter is a 1/4 of an inch. So what's half of that? 1/8 of an inch, or 0.125. So that's kind of the minus the width of our chamfer of 20 thousandths. So now we're at 105. So that's the maximum we could move it over. We're just going to move it over 1. So 0.1 is what I'm talking about. Oops, not 1, 0.1. And then we're going to go ahead and click OK. And you're going to see that on this pass, it's getting far closer to the end of this line. It's still avoiding the wall by a very small amount, but it is getting us much more of the chamfer done than previously. So this concludes the first setup of Fusion Manufacturing number 4. Hope you enjoyed this. Hope you learned something new, and thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.